Call the meeting to order. Has this meeting been properly noticed and a quorum present?
Yes.
Thank you, Heidi. Is there anyone wishing to make public comments on items not on the agenda? We didn't have any.
There are no registrants.
Registrants before. And we have a public hearing at 4:45. Any disclosures or recusals from members of the board? Items on the agenda today. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? That's Jackie. Okay. Asked to unmute. Joe Clausius.
I move approval of the minutes.
Thank you. Second, Dave Branson.
Second.
Further discussion? Motion passes unless there's objection by raised hand. Seeing none, motion passes. There's no water resource impact projects today. Is to approve the consent agenda, items 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 21, and 22. Dave?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Alder Evers?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alder Furman. Did you have further discussion?
Yep, I actually just wanted to suggest at some point that we call the roll. There was no roll call of who's here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go back and do that. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. There was no further discussion. Passes on the consent agenda, passes by acclamation unless there's any objection. Seeing none, motion passes. Heidi, would you call the roll?
Sure. Dave Branson.
Let's see, we'll have to do hands up, I guess.
Here.
Thank you, Dave.
Joe Clausius.
Present.
Michael Cullen.
Not here at this moment, okay.
Present.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Alder Evers.
Present.
Alder Furman.
Present, thank you.
Valise Adams. And Jackie Lawton.
Present. Okay, we have a quorum. All right, item 5 is the public hearing.
Jackie, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. Next item is item 7, Vision Zero policy.
Okay. Thank you for unmuting me. So my name is Yan Tao, and I'm the city traffic engineer. I also have a couple other staff members with me as well today from traffic engineering, Renee and Ali. So the item in front of the board is a resolution, and we have a brief presentation, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can everybody see my screen okay? Okay, thank you. The resolution is to adopt and endorse a Vision Zero policy to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries that are a result of crashes on streets and paths within the city of Madison by 2030. So I think many of you are well versed in Vision Zero, but just a brief overview on it. So Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate and reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries, considering safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. So those kind of some of the focuses for the initiative. It was first implemented in Sweden in 1990s, and since that it has spread out. And more recent years, it became more popular in the States. So Vision Zero has a very different approach when we look at the traffic safety. The traditional approach is that we view traffic deaths are inevitable. We used to think that it's just part of the price we have to pay for our mobility, right? But Vision Zero concept thinks that the traffic deaths are largely preventable. And we used to demand perfect human behavior from our users on the roadway system. Vision Zero thinks, humans are humans. We all make mistakes. So how to consider that in our system? And the traditional focus of safety is to prevent collision. While Vision Zero thinks that it's going to be really hard to prevent all the collisions, but let's focus on the results of that collision. Instead of fatalities, severe injuries can reduce the impact of those collisions. And we used to emphasize individual responsibilities. Everyone has to be responsible for her or himself. But the Vision Zero think that we should look at things from a systems approach. So everyone should work together in that regard. And traditionally, we think that saving lives is expensive. Vision Zero advocates that maybe saving life is not expensive. Let's look at different ways. In general, it's kind of the concept is shifting from just looking at things from engineering perspective. Let's look at things more from a public health perspective, because a life is a life, no matter how it's lost. And here are some key strategies for Vision Zero. First, we need to build and sustain leadership, collaboration, and accountability. We need to consider and include a diverse group of stakeholders, not just transportation professionals, policymakers, but also public health officials, the police, the community members. And data is very important in Vision Zero in identifying trends and potential disproportionate impacts for different population for equity reasons. And it really prioritizes equity and community engagement. So the community is part of the process. It also has a heavy component of managing speed to safe levels. As we all know, the higher speed, the less the likelihood, when, for example, when pedestrian or a bicyclist or people in vehicles can survive when they're involved in a crash. And it also sets a timeline to achieve zero traffic death and serious injuries, which brings urgency and accountability, and also ensures transparency on the progress and the challenges. Zero death on our road system is a very hefty goal, and no other community has achieved that yet. But we have seen that last year, Oslo, Norway, got really close to that. And even if we cannot reduce the traffic deaths to zero, if we just do even just half of that, that's many lives that are being saved every year. What makes a city a Vision Zero city? So there is a network called the Vision Zero network. So they have a certain criteria to judge a city so that a city can become a Vision Zero city. The first one is we have to set a clear goal, and the second condition that the mayor has publicly officially committed to Vision Zero. And we also need to have a Vision Zero plan or strategy in place, or the mayor has committed doing so in a clear time frame. And also, this is not just a transportation issue. Key departments have to be engaged in this effort. So why should we consider this in Madison? That's mainly because traffic injuries and fatalities are a growing health concern in our city. In this graph, you can see the data for the last 6 years, from 2013 to 2018. The blue number shows number of fatalities and serious injuries for folks in vehicles. The red is the bicyclists, and the gray is pedestrians. So our numbers are staying up there, and for 2018, it's even getting worse. That's very consistent with the national trend as people drive more, and also as we got many more detractions introduced into our driving when on our road. So we feel a sense of urgency on that. Also, from this graph, you kind of see that bicyclists and pedestrians are disproportionately represented on number of crashes and number of fatalities and serious injuries.
Say that again. What?
So pedestrian and bicycles are proportionally overrepresented.
I think so.
Injuries and fatalities, because they just don't have the protection as well as the people in vehicles, right? So when something happens, they're more vulnerable.
Oh, that's your point. All right.
That's right. Yeah. So this map shows all the crash locations from 2014 to 2018 in the city of Madison. You can see, the crash is actually fairly concentrated. We did some analysis. Actually, we found that 50% of the fatal and critical injury crashes occur on just 4% of our streets. Mayor Satya has appointed a model agency team to start a Vision Zero initiative for the city. We're also getting some assistance from Bloomberg Associates, which are the kind of old management team for the city of New York City when Mayor Bloomberg was a mayor for a city. So they have been working with other cities on similar initiative and other things. So in terms of city departments, divisions, so these are the list of agencies are involved on the steering team. The team has been working on rolling out the initiative. Introducing the resolutions are the first step, and there are many things in works. As a kind of companion resolution, we are also asking the council to approve a list of Vision Zero advanced projects for 2020. Just to get things going. We are working on a website that's going to be ready very soon. Also, an email list so the public can sign up for it. And also, we're looking for a really good and a catchy slogan. So, if anyone has any thoughts on that, please let us know. We're looking for ideas. And we're also developing a strategic aviation informational brochure. The idea is that we want to have a high-level vision document so that we can share with the public, that they can get the idea very quickly, and we also provide information on there so they can get involved. We're also setting up a few work groups to develop an action plan, for the next 10 years for this initiative. Again, that's that involves multiple city agencies, and it also go beyond that. We have plans to engage the community. So right now we're thinking about through many of the stakeholders that we're identifying, and we will set up a stakeholder task force involving major partners such as UW, Wisconsin DOT, Dane County, etc. So that's a really brief kind of informational presentation we want to share with the board, and we're happy to take any questions.
Alder Furman.
Thank you. When the time is right, I'd like to make the motion. But in the meantime, Yang, I'd like to ask, this presentation is great. I'm so grateful that we are going forward with this. I know this is something that's a long time in the making, and there's a huge commitment by the council, seeing how many sponsors we have. According to the Vision Zero Network, they do actually make it clear that it's not just the mayor that they're looking for a commitment from. They're looking for a commitment from highest ranking local officials. So I just kindly request that you say mayor and common council, which obviously, based on this resolution and when it passes, we'll certainly have. But I think that's a powerful statement to everybody that, this isn't just something the mayor wants to do, which would be fantastic. But obviously this is something that's being supported very strongly by the common council through obviously budget amendments, and now this incredibly important resolution that shows our commitment. So I just wanted to point that out. And again, thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Alder Furman. That's a great point. Yeah, we will make that change. You're right. Yeah, we definitely want not just the mayor, but also other elected officials like common council members to support this.
Thank you.
Alder Evers.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Yang, as well for the presentation. As you can well imagine, alders frequently get engaged or contacted by constituents regarding traffic speed and safety in their neighborhoods. And so I'm wondering to what extent we will be considering reducing traffic speeds on residential streets or coming up with more aggressive measures to calm traffic. I imagine Alder Furman can back me up here. This is near the top of the concerns that we get as alders from our constituents.
Yeah, thank you, Alder Evers. You're absolutely right on that. I think this really is front center of many neighborhoods and then many neighborhoods' attention. So we did hear that from the neighborhoods and from the alders. Speed management, we think is going to be a critical piece of it. So as a first, as this year's advanced projects, so let me actually, I did some extra slide that I thought may come up. So this map shows the list of projects that we are rolling out this year. And, you can see the bigger portion of that is focused on speed management. So all the right lines on this map, that shows speed management projects. As mentioned, the speed really big difference on the outcome of a crash, whether it involves fatality, serious injuries, or just minor injuries. Lots of that depends on speed. So we'll start with a few key corridors, but but we hope to do more. We are, the team also considering whether it makes sense for this community to, do some campaign as some other communities has tried. For example, reduce speed limit in the city on a wider scale, including all neighborhoods. Some cities have rolled out a campaign called the 20 is Plenty, basically reducing all the neighborhood streets speed limit from 25 to 20 miles per hour. So I think we will consider that as we develop the action plan. And we'll definitely, looking for through that process, we'll engage the public. We'll see, what the public think about that, and hopefully we can put something together.
Well, thank you.
All right. Anyone else wishing to discuss? So as part of this, would there be any sense in having speed limits visually appear like what they should be? So Mineral Point Road, for example, sometimes it feels like 40 is a good speed limit, and then you'll go to another, you'll hit some section and the speed limit will go down for no visual reason. Is that something that you guys might look at so that people don't have to always be trying to figure out why the speed limit here is 25 when a similar looking road is 40?
Absolutely. That's a great point. Ideally, everything should go together. How a street designed and how a street feels to the public largely determines how fast people drive on that street. So you're absolutely right on that chair. The idea is, we look at things not just from one perspective, but from a systems approach. So we would consider, doing signing to reduce speed, but we also should make physical changes so that it appears apparent to the driving public that the speed should be slower. For this year's projects, we incorporate some components of that in it. For example, something as simple as highlighting the crosswalks. Highly used crosswalks. Instead of just two lines, we do what's called a continental crosswalk, which are many bars. So that kind of gives drivers a cue. There are many pedestrian activities going on. You should slow down. As an initial proposal of the proposed project, we also have a project proposed at a location that involves narrowing down the street by adding bike lane signs. So that will change the visual appearance of it. Unfortunately, that because of input from Transportation Commission, we removed that project from this list. We'll try to find a funding to get that done from a different funding source. But we're trying to incorporate those components in the projects. But we have to admit that for this year's projects, because the limited amount of funding, we are not going to be able to make tons of physical changes to our roadway. But we kind of capitalize on the roadways that already has a pier or environment that things changed dramatically during the past 20 years. We really haven't looked at the speed limit yet. One good example is, for example, East Washington Avenue, Capital East District. It used to be just highway with lots of parking lots. In recent years, the use has changed a lot. There are many more activities, many high-rise buildings put up. So the environment kind of already changed. People already know that they should drive slower. So we kind of just making those, just build on that, make it official. but we're looking for opportunities to make more physical change to the roadway. So it's more, so everything give a consistent message to the drivers, not just from signing, but it's from the environment, but also from the appearance of the roadway.
So are we eventually going to have the residential roads be 20 and the other roads be 25? Is that our goal here?
I don't know that answer yet, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, you know, it looks that way from your projections here. And I'm just throwing that out there. We'll just move ahead. You don't have to answer that one. Any other discussion?
I had one thing to add, if I might.
Thank you.
I just want to emphasize what was in Yang's presentation, that this, in order to be effective and cost effective and most effective, this needs to be a data-driven process where decisions are made based on the data more than, just there might be a tendency to borrow money for this project or that project out of the Vision Zero Fund, and that really isn't the way this should work.
Thank you, Rob. Alder Furman, did you want to make a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. Have David Branson.
Second.
Second. Further discussion? All in, approved by acclamation unless there's objection. Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you, Yang. Thank you, group.
Thank you.
Heidi, you'll check me on this. I think the next item is 16, Tenny Park Pavilion.
Are we doing the public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. All right, with that, item 5, public hearing on noise issues.
Mike and Scott, I've unmuted you.
Thanks, Christy. Can everyone hear me?
Thank you.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. My name's Michael White. Good to be with you all here today virtually. I'm a local relations consultant with American Transmission Company. We own, operate, and maintain the high voltage transmission grid in most of Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and a small portion of Illinois. And I have also here with me our contractor who we're working with on a project, Scott Sauer of W.A. Chester.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks for your time.
Would you like me to give you a little overview of the project? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, we operate the high voltage power lines, and as you may be aware, substations are connected by these high voltage lines. Currently, we're working on a project that we are replacing an underground transmission line that comes out of our Blount substation just south of East Washington Avenue. That line travels north on Blount Street till it reaches East Johnson. It proceeds west along East Johnson all the way to Henry Street, where it goes south to Mifflin Street, continues along Mifflin just past Bedford, and then it kind of moves into the UW area past East Campus Mall into our East Campus substation, which is just near the LeBon Arena there near the campus. So in the process of our project here, we've broken the project into 2 phases, and we've been working with city staff since about February. The first phase was the removal, essentially, of the existing transmission conductor that entailed draining the insulation fluid out of the line, and then actually physically removing the conductor, checking the conduit for integrity, that sort of thing, and then preparing for the install of the new conductor, which will take place in phase 2. So phase 1 was just wrapped up very recently, I believe this week. So now we are getting ready for phase 2. One component of phase 2 is the install of this new conductor, and that is done between manholes. These manholes, we use heavy, and I shouldn't say we, it's our contractor who will be actually doing the work, W.H. Hester. They use large equipment that have, these large reels and other types of equipment that allows us to pull this conductor between these manholes to install the new transmission line. One section of this project for phase 2 involves, as I had mentioned, a section on Johnson Street, which we all know is a major artery here for the city of Madison. In discussing with the city engineering department, we have determined that both for ease of traffic flow and actually for maybe even more so for public safety, the size of the equipment that's going to need to take place on Johnson Street between the pulls of a manhole on Carroll Street to the manhole on Hancock Street is going to require that we take both the parking lane as well as the southern travel lane, which would leave only one lane open for throughput traffic during our construction process. For that reason, we are requesting a resolution that we can operate or do our work in the evening, so to allow for traffic to flow, particularly at points during the heavy rush hours, as well as give our crews enough room so that they can safely operate on that busy street. So that's just a general overview of our project.
Okay, are there questions from the board? Michael Cullen.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what kind of noise levels are we talking about here?
Thanks for that question. One point to make is that we are going to be installing the new conductor through the existing conduit. So we don't anticipate any excavation required for this project, meaning we won't have to bust up the street or use any hammers or anything like that. As you're aware, noise can be kind of subjective. We did take some readings from the equipment. Most of the noise is going to be coming from our actual equipment, the reels that are pulling, the generators that operate the equipment, et cetera. So we anticipate, and noise travels at different directions from different locations, but we anticipate our decibel levels from 10 feet from the equipment in the low 70 to high 80 range, and moving from 50 feet from the equipment to the mid 60 to high 70 decibel range. Scott, feel free if you want to add anything about, the noise or the source of the audio.
No, you did a good job explaining it, and you pretty much hit the nail right on the head. It is a little bit subjective, but your decibel readings that you just stated were right in line. So, and that was actual levels taken from our piece of equipment with the decibel meter.
Do the generators are they enclosed in soundproof enclosures?
They are not. So On one side, if you can imagine, so we're pulling from wire from one manhole into the other, so it's going to be a double setup. So one manhole will have all the really big cable reels on a big semi-trailer. And then on the other side, there will be a pulling machine, which it's fairly large in size, but it's also another cable reel that will have a diesel engine on it. The side with the cable reels on is the only thing that will be operating on that side will be a small generator to operate some hydraulics and the brake pads that are on the reel cart itself. So the one side is pretty minimal. The side with the piece of the pulling equipment will be in that 70 to 80 decibel range.
Possibly, Rob, is this a time when there's still a lot of traffic through that area, or is traffic sufficiently reduced through the various closures so that one lane of traffic through there would be adequate for now or during the time of this project?
Well, I think it's very possible that we'll end up with going into phase 3, so more things will open up. So I don't think we can guarantee that. One lane would probably suffice during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, but I just don't think you can count on that. Maybe the folks from AT&T can go over their schedule a little bit as well.
Sure. Scott, maybe you've been working with the schedule. Do you want to just discuss that a little bit, or would you prefer I?
Sure. In this particular location, we're targeting the dates from August 17th to August 28th in working in the PM hours. We do need a little leeway. This cable, when we install it, cannot be installed during a rainstorm. So with the unpredictability of the weather, we have to, I know it sounds kind of awkward, but we're kind of limited to sunnier days with no precipitation. Water in the pipe is not very good at all. So in that, it only takes us approximately 2 to 3 days to set up at that location, which can easily be tore down at night to allow for in the morning, in this case, for traffic to go through during the day and set back up at night for our work. And then the actual art of pulling, generally only speaking, if there's no issues, only takes roughly a 12-hour period or less, sometimes a lot less, just depending, again, how easily everything pulls into place. And then we could be tore down again. A few days later, in the following week, we would be doing what would be called splicing. Generally speaking, what that is, it's a lot smaller setup. It's just a box truck sitting over the manhole, and we can reduce our lane closures to approximately 1 lane in that location. And generally what we're doing in that location, we turn that manhole into a clean room, much like you would see like in a computer manufacturing space. Any dust or debris is not allowed inside that wire at that time. Otherwise, it could be detrimental to the wire. So that all takes place in a 2-week time period, again, subject to bad weather.
Okay. And theoretically, very theoretically, there may be students coming back and all that kind of traffic going on also during that time frame. Further discussion from the board?
I just...
Alder Heck? Oh.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say that for the folks with AT&T on the call, that there is a student move-in that's taking place in that August 15th timeframe.
Correct. Yeah, we're aware of that. We also have some activity that we're going to be taking place closer to the campus from the East Campus substation, and that's also been the 15th is really, I know, is Ground Zero Day. So we're going to do our best to avoid any impact during that period.
Thank you. Alder Heck?
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. I want to make sure I understood what I heard. Your estimate of cumulative time of the noisiest portion of this project when you have the big reel out there, the noisiest actually being at the other manhole, was about 12 hours, and it's cumulative, and I understand that it could rain or something and that it could happen on different nights, but that was your estimate?
Correct. Once we actually start the pulling process, that will be the noisiest time with that diesel rig running. Correct. And it's only a 12-hour span in those 2-week time period. The rest is either an idle, like a small generator, a genset that you can easily pick up per person by hand, or just a diesel truck idling.
And would the length of that lower level noise be 12 hours again, or approximately something else?
Yes, we would during the splicing time frame, so that's where we turn the manhole into a clean room. That's a 24-hour-a-day operation. Once we get started, it just makes the most sense just to get it done because it's so much work to get the air purified in that location. So we'll be running 24 hours a day for about 3 to 4 days at that location.
And what again was did you have a decibel estimate on that aspect of the project?
I did not. It is, we measured the loudest piece of equipment, which was the cable pulling rig.
And thank you. And do you have maybe some example of approximately what 70 or 80 decibels sound like with respect to, things like lawnmowers and things like that?
Thanks for that question, Alder Heck. I have something here that was provided with the analysis. And again, this is, I think, very subjective, but the 70 decibel range, according to my exhibit, is listed as classroom chatter. I don't know how they came up with that, but that's what they had just determined is the 70 decibel level. 60 decibel would be a conversation 3 feet away. 80 would be a freight train 100 feet away. So that's kind of the range that I'd referred to.
Thanks. I understand the subjective part of it and that it's also highly a function of wind and what else is going on and all those sorts of things, but those are helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
Could you also just again explain, you mentioned traffic down to one lane, I think, in the major part of the project, the loudest part of the project, I guess. So approximately what hours would be down to one lane? And then I think you mentioned that in that clean room phase, you would only need to close one lane. So were you anticipating that a parking lane would be used to get around that? Therefore, there would be 2 lanes. And I just want to make sure I understand what the lane closure plan is.
Do you want to take that, Mike, or should I?
I'll let you take that, Scott, for the actual 3 different work types.
So to answer the first part of the question was working time frame. I believe per permit, we were looking for 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then the second portion of the question was the clean room phase, if I recall. And you are correct, we could be mobilized down. For the most part, these 2 locations, the 2 manhole lids are in the parking lane. So our truck would be centered over the top of them. It looks like we could be contained to a parking lane. And then it would be nice to have room to walk around the rig, not that you open up the door and then there's a car, you get hit by a car or something like that. The guys enter and exit actually through the floor of that box truck and come out the back. So, I mean, it would be nice to have that second lane. If we could, especially if it's during the night during less traffic conditions.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really a public safety issue, both for our workers and for the public.
Okay, thank you. I guess that might take care of my questions. Just you mentioned 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is the noise ordinance requires that you go through this process to be outside of that. That's 12 hours. Maybe you can get it all done, the noisiest part, in one night. That doesn't include setup, though, I guess.
Cross your fingers and knock on wood, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, once we get started, though, it should take one night, but we always give ourselves 2 just in case, again, for weather. Or if something happens or running into issues.
Yeah, these large-scale projects can be very unpredictable. Lots of variables, as you can imagine.
Thanks. Just one more question, maybe for Rob Phillips. A constituent who lives on East Johnson in one of the blocks that would be impacted by this noise is concerned, as you might have seen in an email that came into the board about privileging the drivers and providing relief for them by not closing this during the day to accomplish this project and doing it at night, which impacts the residents to a much greater degree. Maybe Mike White or somebody can also answer the second part of this, but I guess I'd ask Rob first. Do you have a response for people that are with these types of concerns? And then maybe for Mike or the contractor for ATC, if this was restricted to only day, I understand there's a public safety concern, but the length of the project, I assume, would be at least double when traffic during the day would have to be reduced substantially on Johnson Street, would be for a much longer period of time. So I'd be interested in hearing about that too.
Well, I'll start it out. There's always a trade-off, right, between doing. So that's really part of the decision is, what is in the public's best interest to do it during the day or to do it at night. And it's always, well, not always, but typically it's an issue like this having to do with traffic and convenience and congestion. I would say that, there's people being inconvenienced both ways, and it's a relative point to consider, and that's what the Board of Public Works and Common Council have to weigh. The disruption that occurs though with congestion can go beyond just the street that the congestion is on. It can divert to other routes, and divert to parallel neighborhood streets. So there's a lot of reasons why you really don't want that to take place. It can impact pedestrians trying to cross the road and all sorts of things, bikes and everything else. So, but those are the things you have to kind of weigh and decide if that's in everybody's best interest or not.
Thanks for that, Rob. I guess I'll just add that, we understand that these types of projects are always going to be impactful in some capacity. One of the points that was brought up by city staff is that the duration between the 2 times where there's going to be the heaviest traffic, between the morning rush and then the evening rush, just doesn't give our contractors enough time to sort of complete their work. And as you had mentioned, Alder Heck, that's going to would create a little bit probably of a longer process for our construction. Again, we're happy to work with you. We're trying to work with the city, and it seemed like this would be for this section, this was the preferred option.
Sorry.
Sure, and if I may add, to, thanks for your time. Once we get started, it's not like we can stop easily. That wire's in the ground, and you would literally have to cut it off if all of a sudden rush hour came up again. The expectation is for us to be off the streets. That 12-hour buffer at night would really help us, especially on that major thoroughway.
So if you were to only work, let's say 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., it's probably the case that the project would take more than twice as long, is kind of what you're saying, because of rush hour impacting your ability to work as well as you can at night, or as efficiently as you can at night. So it could even take more than double the time to do the project, maybe. I don't know if that's what I heard or not.
I think
yes. Go ahead.
I'm hearing that it's likely to impact the rush hour time frame, and the result. The other approach to this would be to allow the congestion to take place, and that's what city staff is recommending against.
Yes.
Correct. There would be one lane of traffic during the rush hour period.
So it's mostly about the traffic impacts. Okay, thanks. That's all my questions.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to open the public hearing. We have the letter that everyone received today from Jonathan Bartonek. Registrants who were not wishing to speak. Paul, did you want to say who those were from, or?
On item 5, Rachel Bartnick is from East Johnson Street, opposed, not wishing to speak, and Connor Swenson, opposed, not wishing to speak, 317 East Johnson Street.
Thank you. And having no other registrants, I'm closing the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve? Alder Evers. Let me get there. Okay.
If I may.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't taking notes during the discussion about noise and the decibel levels. Can you repeat that portion about the anticipated dB level inside the homes? Do you have an estimate at what it is at the property line, and then also what it may be inside people's homes with windows closed, inside people's homes with windows open? Presumably this is going to be going on during the summertime, where not everybody is going to have air conditioning and the ability to close their windows. I'm concerned because 65 dB, if that's the noise level inside people's homes, it'll be very difficult for children to sleep, and the logarithmic scale of decibels, even just of 5 dBs up to 70 dBs, is not a modest increase. It's significant. It's the difference between normal living room conversation and the sound of a vacuum cleaner at 1 meter distance. And then going up to 75 dBs would be twice as loud as what 65 dBs are. So it's really, I think, concerning to people who are going to try to sleep at night if these noises are beyond the property line. If this is the sound that's going to be inside people's homes, it will be disruptive. It will cause a tremendous amount of consternation and frustration, and people will be upset. So if there is a possibility to have an inverter type generator, the state-of-the-art generators that are quieter, I think that investment should be made. Otherwise, the residents in Alder Hex District are going to be very, very upset. That I open that up. Anybody who wants to respond to that.
Thanks, Alder Evers. I appreciate that. Our readings are based on the location of houses is variable according to the line. Our readings are based on 10 feet from the puller in the various directions, as well as 50 feet from the puller in various directions. 10 feet, again, ranges from the 70 to low 80 range. 50 feet ranges from the mid 60 to low to mid 70 range.
And that is pretty loud. the city ordinance for a stationary sound source, the maximum level is 65 dBs. So I mean, you would be violating city ordinance if you get over 65. So any effort to mitigate that and quiet that noise, I think is really called for. And I would encourage staff to work with ATC to do just that. 65 dBs is the city's limit by ordinance.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm looking for a second, a motion to approve or further discussion. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
To approve.
Thank you, David. Is there I believe David made the motion. Is there a second? Alder Furman.
I'll second, and then I have actually I'm going to have a question for Rob based on what the alder just said. Rob, is there any ability to ask for anything here as part of our motion? Should we be asking for any additional sound mitigation? What's reasonable?
Sometimes there's some things that some barriers that could be put up to kind of shield the sound, but I don't think you're going to get. I don't think you're going to get much here. I think it is what it is. Heavy construction equipment is typically louder than the sounds that you'd be hearing here. I think in excess of 80 decibels. So I don't think this is the loudest of noise that construction can make, but it's certainly in the middle of the night inconvenient for people. But there would be a significant drop. And I think the folks from AT&T said that they measured it right at the equipment, and almost nobody ever quotes sound decibel levels right at the equipment. Usually it's when you're talking about these types of things, usually it's at a building or at some point at the edge of the right of way or something, and would be somewhat less. So these are not the loudest of sounds that we would experience during construction, but still inconvenient.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Alder Heck.
Thank you. I guess I would kind of echo what we've heard a little bit. And this is a road a street that has narrow right of ways, and some of the homes and multi-flats are pretty close to the right of way. So I think it really is possible that somebody's bedroom is maybe 15 or 20 feet from the source of the noise. And when I think about the one block between, I guess it's Hancock and Butler, I think, there's a 5-story apartment building right up against the right of way on the other side of this street. And so there'll be, initially I was thinking, well, maybe they could put a barrier up of some sort, at least, just to help. But I think it would just deflect it to the 5-story building across the street and right back again to the many bedrooms that front Johnson Street there. So, I'm not going to oppose this, but I do think that it would be very helpful for ATC and their contractor to explore some of these options, whether it's another type of generator, if possible, or boxing in noise sources, as is sometimes done in street reconstruction projects, it would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Michael, did you have a comment or? Not now, okay. With that, unless there's objection, motion passes. Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Did Alder
Alder Evers?
I object.
Okay, thank you.
I object. I would.
Oh. Sorry.
I would approve this if we had an amended motion that required additional sound mitigation. I feel that it's incumbent upon staff to work with ATC and their contractor to come up with something stronger. So the motion, this was approved, but I do think that with my objection, but I think we are obligated as a city to do better than we're doing here.
Thank you. Heidi, you can note that in the minutes, please. That,
yes, I will.
Motion was approved with the objection.
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll move on to our next item.
And for the folks with ATC, they might want to register for the Common Council meeting as well.
Okay. We are on to Tenney Park Pavilion acoustical plaster ceiling, item 16.
This is Jim Whitney speaking. I'm an architect with Facilities Management Group, and I've been working on this project. Yep, thanks for showing the floor plan here. And this project, we would like to construct, install a sound absorbing acoustical plaster system over the existing gypsum board ceiling at Tenney Park in the large meeting room area. And the acoustical plaster system is somewhat of a specialty. It has includes normally proprietary sound absorbing plaster finish over a pre-coated sound absorbing panels that we would apply to the existing drywall ceiling that we have there. And the if you go back to the ceiling plan for me real quick. Yep, this drawing. So this is the area that we would like to apply the sound application to the ceiling. It's a large vaulted ceiling, and they've been experiencing a great deal of sound reverberation throughout that space when they have larger parties there, having events and things like that. The large A-frame, I think it's all hard surfaces. There's a polished concrete floor. The walls around the meeting room are exposed concrete block, and the ceiling is drywall. So we have all hard surfaces in this space. And the plan is to apply this acoustical plaster system with the mineral wool panels and the thin coats of sound plaster throughout the entire ceiling in this area that will result in a very good sound reduction for us for this space. And we had an earlier acoustical report made by a company called Jurgis Acoustics back in 2015. And that report identified a sound reduction that would, to get the reverberation time in the room from 3.2 seconds of reverberation down to 1. And the value that they use to measure that is in sabins. And the term sabin is a value that acoustic engineers use to define, based on square footage, the amount of sound reduction that can be achieved. And when I looked at this area based on the square footage, I think we would be at about 1,500 sabins. Our minimum is 1,000 that we want to achieve. So applying this acoustical plaster system should result in a very good results for us to get us to very good sound control under that 1 second reverberation time. And then if you could go quickly to the brochure for me. I can just show you real quickly. Yep, this one here. Scroll up. Well, here's a good view right here is good. So this is a pre-coated panel that the manufacturers make for it, and the pre-coating, I think, is kind of like a mineral rock thin coat plaster. And these boards come, and the boards are made with like a mineral wool or glass fiber type material. That gets glued directly to the ceiling. And then they come back after they glue it up to the ceiling and cover the joints with a sound plaster mortar to cover those up. And then I think they let all that dry. And then once it dries, then they come back with a base coat layer of this mineral rock type acoustical plaster. And I think they put a very thin coat on, like about a 16th inch thick onto these panels. They trowel that on and smooth it out. And then they let it dry overnight. And then they come back and put the final coat on, which is another about 16th inch coat over that to get the finished appearance. And the appearance comes out looking like a finished, smooth drywall ceiling. So what we would like to do is to try and achieve the same appearance that we have now. It's kind of a specialty plaster with the mineral rock type formula that's a little bit different than gypsum plaster. But I think they use kind of a mineral rock type material and use limestone as a binder for that. It does not get painted, so the final finish coat would be white, and which is good because it would, we'll keep that white finish in the room as well. And I think that's it. Were there any other documents? If you go back up on this brochure, a couple of pages, it shows a section. Here's a section of this system, and the top applied fine coat goes over the applied base coat material. And again, that's only about 1/8 of an inch thick, so it's really very thin. And I think it allows that mineral rock type material allows the sound to penetrate through to the mineral wool panels that are behind it. And then those are applied on top of that supporting panel. And then that's using adhesive, just glued onto the ceiling with the manufacturer's adhesive. The stable substrate is the existing drywall ceiling that we have there. And I'm recommending that they do prime that first, though, with a paint primer before they use the adhesive. And so with that, we would like to ask for your approval to advertise for bidding for this project to move forward and send it out and see what kind of quotes we can get. I know we do have 3 manufacturers in the area. One's called Boswafon. They're very well known with this type of application. The others I've talked to are a company called Fellert, Fellert, and the third one I've talked to is called Fade, Fade. All 3, their materials really for this kind of system is based out of Sweden. And this is kind of where this technology has been developed. And so I think all 3 companies, their major headquarters are all out of Sweden. The nearest contractors we've been able to find, I think Boswafon has certified contractors out of the Chicago area. Fellert, I think, has some out of Minnesota. And Fade System, actually, I think the person I talked to there is out of Milwaukee. So we don't have any local certified installers, but certainly within the region. The installation time, I'm told from the vendors, is for this project would be about 5 to 10 days. We've identified a timeline. I think it's the end of November for 2 or 3 weeks, and have the Parks Department has left the Tenny Park Pavilion open at that time, unreserved, so we could have about a 3-week period to do this work. So that's kind of our first timeline that we're trying to meet, is to get the work done end of November, first part of December. If for some reason that doesn't work out, then we have scheduled a second time, I think in April of next year, to hold a window open for the park shelter to do the work at that time as well, if for some reason we miss our timeline for the November installation.
Michael, do you have a question or a discussion?
Yeah. Are there any mechanical fasteners that hold those panels up on the ceiling prior to the installation of the applied base coat and fine coat?
Yeah, no, it's all adhesive, mastic applied.
So is that a concern at all with you?
No. I think with our smooth drywall that we have up there, as long as they prime it first and get paint over that existing paint on the ceiling with a primer to neutralize the paint that's there, I think the adhesive should be fine. Most of these applications with these vendors are done in ceiling areas. A lot of it I saw was done in like large hotel lobbies, convention centers, museums even. I saw some examples in large museums. And the applications always seem to be mostly up very high and not down at lower heights, because you wouldn't want people banging into this kind of material because you could damage it. But if it's up higher, and out of the way, and that's kind of where I've seen it in all the examples that I've looked at is a ceiling applied. They do have a grid. I did see one where it was a ceiling grid applied, and the panels were applied mechanically, like to a suspended acoustic tile ceiling, where they would clip these panels onto the ceiling grid and wouldn't actually be glued to anything. So I think some of the manufacturers do have a way to do that to a suspended grid ceiling if you wanted to do that. But in our application, we have the solid substrate with the existing drywall ceiling that we can use to apply these directly with adhesive.
I was thinking more in terms of a screw going into the joist above the drywall.
Oh, no, I haven't seen any information from the vendors on using any mechanical fasteners to go through.
All righty, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alder Evers?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second? David?
Second.
Thank you. This is going to be essentially outdoors. Is that a concern with the adhesive?
Oh, no, this is indoors. This is in the shelter pavilion itself at Tenny Park.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not doing anything on any of the outdoor soffits. No, this is all on the interior space.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion? We'll approve the motion unless there's objection. Motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 17, contract change order, Judge Doyle Podium.
Okay, I have change order 13 for contract 8290. That is 8 change order requests totaling $53,602, with the first change order request being added blocking at the Pinckney entrance doors that wasn't shown on the plans prior. That is for $4,894. And then the next change order request was provide fire dampers at the duct penetrations, was between the truck dock and the supplying the office of the park utility office for $7,060. Third portion is the insulate and paint the storefront tubes in the retail areas for $3,760. The fourth change order request was to modify the level 2 egress, and that came in at $17,164. And the fifth change order was to provide fire rated ceiling at the exit passageways, $15,666. Sixth change order request, provide fence around ship's ladder as a building inspection requirement for $2,090. Number 7 is provide call-out station monitoring, which was an additional device for $876. And then 8, the final COR change order request was to modify the exit passageway doors to allow them to be unlocked, to allow pedestrians to get to the stairways for $2,089. Again, the total being $53,602.
Thank you. Any discussion? Alder Furman?
Thank you, Chair. As I'm sure you won't be surprised, I continue to be really frustrated with now going over the contingency more and more. Can you explain a little bit more why these things were out of scope, and why we are now going to be 176,000 above the 8% contingency of 591,000, and it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up, and doesn't seem to be an end. So I'd also think I may have asked this in the past. I mean, is this the last time we're going to see this a change order for this, or should we expect a few more?
There will be at least one more, and I can go through the justifications on these. The added blocking, there was nothing shown there, so that we're paying for something that was added to the drawings that wasn't shown. It was added blocking and air barrier at the perimeter of those entrances. The fire dampers needed to be there in the plan. They weren't shown, so those were needed to be added. Third item was the storefront tubes. That's an insulation requirement. It was a requirement of building code that again wasn't in the drawings. It needed to be added. The egress, level 2 egress, was changed as a requirement by building inspection. Moving a door off of the exit corridor. Fire rated ceilings in the exit passageways was again required by building inspection and unforeseen. Fence around the ship's ladder that goes up to the water service and fire pump room, and to keep anyone from going up there and possibly hiding. That was the building inspection requirement to put a fence around that. Call out station, that was added scope for that device to make the monitoring to be able to call out properly. And then the hardware we found as we were going in from the outside, the hardware didn't have the ability to unlock. So this $2,000 made was for 2 doors to make them unlockable.
So so you said there's another one coming. What will that be for? What are some of the stuff that we should expect more bills for?
That will be, it's electrical items. That will be Let me look here. Basically, the electrical to take down and put up some lights to change the ductwork out, and then the electrical, which included fire alarm, to get the fire-rated passageways in. And I'm just working on trying to get the final numbers at this point. I think it'll be less, I expect it to be less than 20 from what I've got in hand so far. And then there's one other outstanding code issue that I'm trying to resolve on the fire rating required for the generator fuel line. And I've told you before that I had one number come in at $100,000, and I heard another possible today of 40,000. So, which is another building code requirement coming from building inspection. And I'll know more on that here, hopefully within the next few days.
And I believe you said, I believe last time we had discussed, as you said, the plan in the future is to make sure we coordinate better with the building inspection team with plans to make sure that these things are known ahead of time.
The experience here, the city, to avoid conflict of interest, was having on city facilities, having the state do the review. And as a result of everything we've run into on this one, the city has changed and will be doing their own review. City will review city plans.
Okay. I have a question for Rob. Rob, where's this money coming from?
It's actually in the budget. There's a budgeted amount that we still have with the overall budget. We still have funds available, which will cover the next contract of the demolition of the Government East Garage. And then in that, we've also have an allowance figured for the increased labor rate and increased protection, because now the Great Dane patio is open, and that we've moved from what we expected to be done prior to the opening of the patios. Now the patios are open. So we right now have probably, I think it's 30,000 that's unspoken for. It's not encumbered. And so we're edging on the point of running over what the budget allows, what has been the budget authority given.
So I want to apologize for not asking you that directly and jumping to Rob. That was not appropriate. Obviously, you had the answer, so I appreciate that. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you first. The number, the 176, though, that whole total number, Dave, where's all that coming from? And obviously it sounds like it's anywhere from another 20 or so for electrical, and possibly up to another 100 for that other thing. It sounds like it's a lot more than that 30,000 that you just talked about.
It is in watching this closely as these change orders come in, and working with David Schmidtke to watch that with the wages that are also being accumulated through this time, and what we have left for, again, budget authority that's been approved for it.
So there's money somewhere for it is up to that, another. Okay. All right. I'll probably shoot you a note. I'd like to see more detail on that to better understand
no
where all that's coming from.
And this change order takes us to, let's see, it was 10.39% over. Just in the change order, you read right there. Yeah, there you go, Heidi. Thank you. Where it was, this change order is 0.72% of the original. Previous were 9.66, which takes us to 10.39%. So yes, we're over the 8%, but we'll be under the 15%.
And what does the 15% mean?
That's the maximum you can go on a public works contract.
We're getting close. All right. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Alder Furman. David Branson?
Second.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you very much. Further discussion? Joe, did you want to say something, or you were? Joe, did you want to say something, or you were ready to second?
No, I was just going to second it. I'm fine.
Thank you very much. Is there further discussion? With that, the motion is approved unless there's objections. Seeing none, motion is approved. Thank you, Dave Schaller. Item 16, reconstruction of contract change orders on sidewalk.
Item 18, right?
18, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Chris Pedikowski with engineering, and I'm going to be talking about the change order 1 to the sidewalk contract this year. This is actually a change order for the County M project. The County M project is a WISDOT project being reconstructed from Valley View Road down to Cross Country Road. It's a joint project with Verona, Dane County, and the state of Wisconsin. That project's been underway for a number of years now. It's actually wrapping up. They're doing some repair work to a pipe on Raymond Road currently, but all the roadway work is done and complete and open and on County M. What this change order was for some additional sidewalk areas that was not included in the original plans in the WISDOT project set. And what it is areas where we have 2 underpasses, one by Flagstone Road and one down at the corner of Pleasant View and McKee. And when we have the underpasses, we have a parapet wall, which is 5 feet away from the curb and gutter. And after we reviewed the areas with the Parks Department and determined, where everything was going to be mowed, it was requested, and I think rightly requested, that this area, this 5-foot area between the parapet wall and the curb and gutter, is going to be very difficult for them to mow. So what we're asking to do here is add an amount of concrete sidewalk to be poured in between that parapet wall and the curb, so it wouldn't have to be maintained in the future. It is a change order for $64,005, and would be constructed here in the next couple of months if approved. The reason that we did not include it with the WISDOT project is there's a number of ongoing issues with that project and the repair of the pipe and the liquidated damages that are going on. So we didn't want to muddy the waters with any additional work requested to that contractor. So we thought it would be better idea to use our annual citywide contract for sidewalk.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a discussion or a motion to approve? Michael.
Yeah, was there a opportunity for WISDOT to cover any of the costs for that?
So the way the federal funds works with the WISDOT projects is you get a certain dollar amount that's authorized at the kind of the onset of when you're designing the project. You apply for a certain set of federal funds, and in this case, the project is now over. The costs are so that. Let's just say for simple sake, if it was $1 million project and it was 60% funded, you would get $600,000 from federal funds, right? And then
just essentially, Chris, it's just capped, right?
It's capped, yes. So we aren't
going to get more federal funds with increased expenses.
Exactly. So even if we would have used the WISDOT contract or this one, it would have been all city cost. And I should mention one of the parapets is a joint parapet with the city of Verona, and they will be reimbursing us for 25% of the cost of this change order.
And the county too, Chris, right?
We haven't been able to agree to yet, no.
Okay.
All righty, thank you.
Alder Evers.
There's no more discussion. I move approval.
Thank you. David?
Second.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. If there's no objection, the motion is approved. Motion's approved. Thank you. That was item 18. Item 19, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard sidewalk.
Yes, so this is another change order, first change order for this project on Martin Luther King Jr. Again, it's a situation where it was actually some other work being requested to be done here. The city has a new plat called the Pope Farms Estate Plat on the far west side. As they were doing the construction of the infrastructure required for that plat, we had the Shave and Old Sauk Road closed. And while they were repairing or doing work associated with the plat, as the work was undergoing, our city construction engineer, John Farney, and our Janet Schmidt, our principal engineer in the stormwater section, realized that there was some downstream pipes of the plat that needed to be upsized and a new manhole upsized as well. And we wanted to take advantage of the fact that the roadway was closed and we had the contractor there working. So this would be a city cost, not a plat cost. And the contractor that was out there working on the plat is Parisi Construction, and they were also constructing Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard sidewalk for us. So we had asked them to replace the storm sewer and do the asphalt repair associated with that. So this change order is for $27,499.63 for that work.
Okay. Is there discussion or a motion to approve? David?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Joe?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Motion is approved unless there's objection. Seeing none, motion is approved on item 19. Item 20, Nakusa Trail Fleet Fire Radio Shop.
Okay, I think I'm live now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
This is for contract 7528, new fleet facility. This is change order number 6 for the $47,953. 7 change order requests are included in it. First one is the city directed AV changes for $6,496. Second one was the city decision to delete several of the site cameras for credit of $6,031. City decision on changing window blinds for an add of $3,486. Staff decision to add cord reels for fire and ambulance vehicles for an add of $13,835. And a credit change for the decorative metal on the exterior of the building for a credit of $3,103. Fleet staff decision to add an additional set of hose reels for their fluids, their oils, for an add of $29,485. And then fleet staff decision to change the material for the window washer fluid pipe from steel to copper for an add of $3,784. For the total add again of $47,953.51.
Thank you. Is there discussion or a motion to approve? David?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Joe Clausius?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, motion is approved unless there's objection. Seeing none, motion is approved. Thank you. This takes us to item 23, that the change of the May change order report is out. Does anyone have discussion on that? Seeing none, were there any appeals regarding pre-qualifications, Heidi?
There were none.
Thank you. Award of contract, Rob?
Yep. So item 25 on the agenda is contract number 8515, local road traffic calming and arterial pedestrian enhancements in 2020. We are recommending the low bidder, Raymond P. Cattell Incorporated, $450,176.50. And that is the only bid for this evening.
Thank you. Further discussion or motion to approve? David?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Alder Evers?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Motion is approved unless there's objection. Seeing none, motion is approved. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Michael? Also?
I just wanted to kind of bring up the point that whole vote on the public hearing item was a little awkward.
Yes, it was.
I think if there's a concern or an objection by one of the board members, that we should probably hear about that before we actually vote. And I know it's kind of difficult with the way things are going right now, but I think that having a conditional approval based on the city trying to work with the contractor to mitigate those noise levels as much as possible would have been appropriate. And I was kind of waiting for the district holder to kind of mention that, and I was kind of taken aback that wasn't part of the approval. But, I think those noise levels they were giving us some of those were 50 feet out, and it's not like Rob was saying, it's right at the equipment. So I think noise is going to be an issue on that project. And I just wanted to bring that up. And if there's some way that we can maybe do individual votes on that or something to kind of, just.
I was trying to raise my hand, and it's sometimes you're in a different screen. I was struggling to get to the raised hand function, and I was kind of also waving my hands. I agree. I think that would have been appropriate if we could have put some kind of conditioned approval forward. And you're right, the dB levels, if this is going to go as high as 80 dBs, which they mentioned the possibility of, look up when we get out of this meeting, Google what 80 dB sounds like. You'll get comparators that you'll find alarming that this would be taking place during the night while people are trying to sleep.
And I think you'll have a chance at the council to
we will
get that in there. So not that, and we do have it noted in the minutes. So it was not fancy, but hopefully they heard the message.
Well, it's my fault that I was a little clumsy. I could have, in terms of process, I could have put forth an amendment at any point, and I did not. I could have amended the motion. I did not. So it's on me.
Okay, thank you for that. Alder Furman?
I just wanted to chime in. Obviously, there are 3 alders that were here today. Obviously, one of them is gone. We'll make sure that these concerns are brought to the council when this is in front of the council, and make it clear that, if there's anything that can be done, that's something we'd like to see.
Good.
That sounds good.
You. Do we have a second for adjournment?
I will second.
Thank you very much. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
And thank Paul.